Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a profound mystery, a kind of quiet crisis that's been hiding in plain sight, right at the heart of our technological age. It's a question that really affects every single algorithm, every smart device, and every ethical debate we have about the future. And this quote, it absolutely hits the nail on the head. This is the core of the puzzle. We're out here trying to build ethical, human-centric AI, but we're building it on a philosophical foundation that has completely crumbled away. It's like building a house on thin air. So to really understand how we got here, we've got to start with a central paradox. So yeah, our whole investigation really kicks off with this strange paradox, something happening right at the center of the AI revolution that reveals a much deeper problem.
Get this. Over the last decade, literally hundreds of AI ethics frameworks have been published. We're talking about massive institutional efforts from the world's biggest tech companies, from governments, from major universities. And on the surface, they all seem to agree on the same beautiful principles, fairness, transparency, accountability, and beneficence.
But here's the paradox, right? Despite all this apparent agreement, these frameworks consistently fail to prevent real-world harm. They don't stop algorithmic bias, and they can't seem to solve the really fundamental disagreements about what AI should or shouldn't do. So, what is going on?
Well, the answer isn't a technical one. This isn't about writing better code or getting more data. The flaw here is way deeper. It's philosophical, and honestly, it has been centuries in the making. See, every single ethical framework, it doesn't matter if it's for AI or for a legal system, is built on a foundational idea of what a human is. Philosophers have a word for this, anthropology. It's the story we tell ourselves about our nature, our purpose, and what a good life even looks like.
And this, right here, is the absolute core of the problem. These frameworks use these grand words like fairness and human flourishing, as if we all just universally agree on what they mean. But we don't. Not anymore. The shared cultural stories that once gave those words real substance have totally fragmented. We're building on an empty foundation.
So, how do we get into this mess? How did our shared understanding of humanity become so hollow? Well, you can actually piece the story together by tracing a few crucial clues from our recent past. It's kind of like a detective story.
Okay, our first clue comes from the philosopher Martin Heidegger. Decades ago, he warned about this new way of seeing the world that he called enframing. It's a worldview where technology isn't just a bunch of tools, but a whole mindset that reduces everything and everyone into just a resource to be managed.
In this view, a forest isn't a living ecosystem anymore. It's a standing reserve of timber. A river becomes just a source of hydroelectric power. The examples are pretty clear for nature, right? But this forces a really critical question. What happens when this worldview turns its gaze on us? Does a human being become nothing more than a standing reserve of data, just waiting to be optimized?
Our second clue comes from media theorists like the great Marshall McLuhan. He argued that our tools aren't really separate from us. A hammer extends the power of our arm, a smartphone extends our voice, our ears, our memory. Our technology becomes part of us, and it starts to blur the line between where the human ends and the machine actually begins. As the cognitive scientist Andy Clark puts it so brilliantly, we are natural-born cyborgs. Our brains are biologically primed, practically wired, to merge with our own creations. And this isn't some far-off sci-fi concept. It's a deep truth about what we have always been.
So as our traditional stories, about God, about nature, about community, as they started to fade away, a really powerful news story quietly slipped in to take their place. In the vacuum, with no shared vision of humanity, market consumerism offered a simple, default answer to the human question. And what was the market's vision of a human being? It's pretty reductive. You're not a soul with a purpose. You're a bundle of preferences, a set of desires to be satisfied. You're a user to be engaged, a consumer to be served. This simple vision became the invisible default anthropology that now guides the design of so much of our technology. For decades, we've mostly managed to just ignore this fragmentation, kind of papering over the cracks. But now, artificial general intelligence is forcing us to look directly into the mirror. When a machine starts doing things like this, creating genuinely original thoughts, things you literally can't find on Google, it forces a profound and, let's be honest, pretty uncomfortable question on all of us. This is exactly why AGI is different. It's not just another tool. By mimicking our most cherished and supposedly unique abilities, our creativity, our reason, our language, it directly challenges our very definition of ourselves. It holds up that mirror and asks, if that is a machine, then what are you?
And this is the critical moment we find ourselves in. AI has ripped open a case we all thought was closed, forcing that ancient question, what is a human, right back to the center of our culture.
So now, we're faced with these radically competing visions for our future, and each one is based on a completely different idea of what we are. Are we creatures with a transcendent calling, made to image God in the world? Or are we natural-born cyborgs whose ultimate destiny is to just merge completely with our technology? These are not compatible stories. A choice between them is becoming unavoidable.
So ultimately, our arguments over algorithms, over data privacy, and AI safety, they're not really about technology. They're just proxy wars in a much deeper battle. They're arguments about anthropology. They're a frantic search for an answer to the question of what it means to be human.
The technology has arrived. It's forcing a choice. We can no longer avoid the fundamental question we've spent centuries ignoring. AI is here. So the question we have to answer is, who are we?